Welcome to a comic book look after hours, straight from the pages of a comic book look. John on demand here. We got Skyler on deck. Co-pilot. Wow, I'm used to kind of flying solo, so it'll be awesome today. Comic book look after hours. We're all about talking to creators and getting down into who's bringing us the pages and so forth. We have a very special guest. We're out here in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota, but joining us from New York is Cassidy Lee Phillips. And hi.
How you guys doing?
Good. Good. Well, we're going to kind of just jump right into the meat and potatoes of our talk today, and we're going to be talking about your work, Max Brawler Mega. First of all, I did just want to tell you, like, when I read the title of it, I was like, what am I getting into here? You know, like, is it going to be kind of like a, I don't know, like, it just had kind of a kick-ass vibe to it, you know, I suppose. When you told me, you told us a little bit about it, like, in the emails, and you have it available online to read, which I think is cool. The website works out really slick. I did the full page. I put that photo up of it. I was reading it on my big screen. And it was really cool because then you got to kind of zoom in a little bit and see the details of the pages, which I had some fun things that I had jotted notes down about. But just to kind of get started here, I'm curious. You wrote it, you drew it. That's 100% you. How long does something like that take? and I'm asking because that's a lot of thought, energy, and oomph put into it. Like that's crazy. You know, because you see these books that have a team of 8 people behind it. You know, the ideas, the art, and so forth. The penciler, the inker. You're like, I'll just do it all by myself.
Well, it took a long time. I had the idea going back to high school, probably, for these characters and these ridiculous, overblown situations, and it was kind of one of those things that I knew I had a specific way of telling a specific story, and the only way it was going to get done exactly the way it was in my head was if I did it all myself. So I just kind of, here and there, you know, while continuing to be a responsible adult and have a full-time job and pay my bills, pieced it together and, you know, wrote a script, did the drawings, and just did it one step at a time. But it was taking me probably 3 or 4 years, start to finish, to design the characters and get, you know, the whole look of the thing. Actually, the hardest part was probably making the book look the way that it does, to where it's legible and you understand what's happening, but it still has sort of a sketchy, unfinished look to it. So, yeah, it took a lot of time, and it was intimidating, and I did wonder if I was ever going to finish it sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, were there some nights you're just like, page 5, oh my God.
The best is when you went to sleep late at night, and you thought you finished something, and then you woke up the next morning and you looked at it and said, no.
That's terrible.
That's not done. Yeah, that is not done yet, you know. So I had a very clear vision for it, and it was tough sometimes when you would start up the computer and start doing your Photoshop, and the images were not as far along as you saw them in your mind.
Yeah.
But as silly and simple as the book is, as straightforward Max brawling as it is all the time, it was something I really, really wanted to do. Yeah. So that's what it took. I knew that I probably wasn't going to see any money out of it. It was just me drawing exactly what I wanted to draw.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's just so cool that you were able to execute a project over that span of time. I mean, our episodes were just like, you know.
Yeah, if I get a project, I've done a little bit of creative writing stuff with some friends, and if I get a project that goes over 6 months, I usually lose interest and fall off.
Exactly.
Go off onto something completely different.
So it does. I mean, you got some serious focus there in the fact that you wanted to do it. You went out and did it, and that's awesome. So I kind of wanted to get into the vision of it first. Before we get into the materials, the hands-on stuff, I wanted to get into your head. So I'm going to be the doctor here on brain surgery. Your vision of the book, if you can kind of elaborate on that, and the reason why I asked that is the culture of the book is something unlike anything that I've read before, to be honest with you. And I think that your description of the book, people throwing punches and so forth, this is not people in underwear saving the day. This is this is real life for some people. You got the school settings, you know, the hangouts after school, people skipping school, bullying. These are all real issues, you know.
Yes.
Can you kind of give us an insight as to where this came from? Does it pertain to a chapter of your life that you're presenting?
I would say people that I grew up with. There's always going to be parts of yourself in anything that you write. But I was never as ridiculous and extreme as these guys.
Yeah.
I think that the original idea came from being in high school and, you know, finishing an assignment early, I would hope, and having the page turned over and just thinking, you know, what do I want to draw right now? And a lot of the time it would end up being an exaggerated version of something that had actually happened,
Yeah.
or something that someone said had happened,
Yeah.
or that they wish would happen. And so a lot of Max Brawler is kind of the stories that high school age guys will tell each other. And, you know, oh, well, here's what I wanted to do. Here's what I wanted to say. Or, you know, so it's very much just a testosterone fueled dream of high school.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ideas I had as a high school kid, which I'm 29 now, so it's taken a long time for me to get to where I could kind of make it something that was digestible to anybody other than myself, as far as, you know, getting it to where I can really laugh at it from a distance too, and not take it too seriously. Because the funny thing about it is when you're 15 or 16, you're dead serious about putting that guy in that trash can and rolling him down the hallway, or not being the guy in the trash can,
right?
Whichever way, you know. And that's the kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but my high school, we had some stupid stories going around, and there were some things that I saw, and I think it has been shocking to a few people when I show them the book that I have. A middle school age kid confronting another kid about selling drugs. Yeah. They're like, wow, that's really dark. And I'm like, well, I don't know what it was like when you grew up, but for me, that was actually just a normal part of everyday middle school life. And it wasn't even really a scary thing. It was kind of, you know, you just said no and went on with your day, and that was it. But yeah, that was real. You know, the huge melee in the hallway, not so much. Teenagers who actually know how to fight, it's not so much. And you don't think about it in a realistic sense either at that age. People going to the hospital, or, you know, real serious damage being done. It's all somehow this cartoon violence where everyone's going to bounce right back up off the ground and dust themselves off and be okay. So the tone is definitely oddball. It's somewhere between reality and a Popeye cartoon, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, Cassidy. I actually was kind of like intimidated to interview you after I read the book, because I'm like, man, I bet this guy's going to be like just a warrior. Reach through the screen and choke the life out of me. Yeah, take those shades off, boy. Yeah.
No. I'm just the guy that follows the heroes around, chronicling their behaviors.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. That's all I am. The storyteller.
No, so we got into that. Now, the next thing I did want to just talk about, complementing the writing, is going to be that artwork behind you. These are pieces that you've done as well. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
That's my paintings.
I really like the style. I mean, when I had it blown up on my big screen, I was able to kind of just take a look at the coloring, the way that your panels are not defined by lines sometimes, but words, actions. I had made a note here about got hit by the preppy freight train.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, written down. Just that kind of stuff. It's very colorful between the actual artwork and then the language that is used in there too. It just kind of it took me back to high school a little bit. I wouldn't say I was fighting people in the hallways necessarily, but I wasn't part of the preppy crowd either, so I got a chuckle out of that. You know, and I think that
there's definitely classism, right? It's some class separation going on.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw some of that in there, definitely, because you don't really have heroes and villains at that. You know, in issue number 1 of Max Brawler Mega, it's just kind of a bunch of, you don't really know. These guys are anti-heroes, or it's all in sort of a gray area. And even with the fights in the beginning there, Zach could be completely in the wrong. We don't know, you know, what his issue with these guys is. And I mean, I liked it that way. But again, I'm kind of an odd guy that I'm going to be attracted to the strange artwork on the comic book stand, or the book I've never heard of. You know, and with films, I'm the same way. Movies, I like something that ends in kind of an awkward fashion.
Yeah.
You can make up your own ending, you know? So, yeah, and the language is pretty close to how my friends and I talked as kids. And some of them still talk like that. And the art style, for me, I'm a big fan of Juxtapose magazine and urban artwork, graffiti that I see out and about. Just anything that looks different. And the art style, for me, kind of, I wanted to play into some of that, the no rules aspect of street art. But also, I wanted it to look almost like something that was done with rollerball pen and felt tip pens on the back of homework assignments, and sort of like that nomadic way, and then everything's just kind of thrown together. And in the original designs for the book, I had even more with like lined paper overlays and things. But what happened was the images became so convoluted that it was hard to read the actual story. So I had to simplify it a little bit. But I had at one point different logos and characters on everybody's T-shirts in the background, so that you could really just sit and look at each image like a Where's Waldo picture.
Absolutely.
But yeah, well, I'm glad you appreciated it. I've had it's something that people either love or hate.
But it was done in a way that I thought really just complimented the book, and it was fun, and most importantly, it was original. And that's what I appreciated, seeing something fresh, you know, and something new. That's what when we went to the Comic-Con, we were, you know, Skyler actually went really heavy on indie books. It was shaking hands with creators and stuff. So, I mean, if you ever do a table, I think that you would do really well, because you're very approachable. And that's what we like as consumers. So, I don't know. I just kind of sometimes get tired of my own pull list. I said this last week too on the show, but this week wasn't too much better for me. I read them mainly to keep up with characters and stuff, you know. But I don't know. For me, it's just really getting out there and seeing what else is hopping in the industry.
Absolutely.
You know? Absolutely. So with your book, let's talk about the whole thing put together a little bit. The setting is intense, and it's I was intimidated to talk to you, you know. This one scene, the fireman shows up with the axe to regulate a fight / riot, and break it up. I mean, he's just like, alright, break it up, you know, he looks all angry, you know. Oh my god, I was just like, what in the world? Like, that would scare kids, you know, people walking in with axes and stuff. I guess these days maybe not, but we're old, right? So that was cool. Another layout thing that I did want to point out too was there was the scene regarding Cutter, and there were arrows pointing to his face, showing he's serious, and then they're road mapping to the different panes. And so, if you don't mind, I'll put a screenshot up of that so they can kind of see it, because that was a really neat page that stood out to me. So again, that's just something that really jumped out at me. Talking about the book as a whole, though, you got these published, and you know, we were visiting about that earlier, so we won't rehash it. But there's all these opportunities. Okay. There's all these opportunities to get your work out there and so forth. Was the actual product like was it a hard process, or was it a lot of just digging around, seeing what resources were available to you as a creator? Or, you know, I guess, how does it go? Because we don't see this side of it.
Yeah. Well, it took me so long to put the book together. You know, the the 3 or 4 years, just the whole development process, that I had plenty of time here and there to do research. I kept up with what Kablam was doing, Kablam printing.
Okay.
And in the meantime, webcomics became much more accessible with graphically.com and Kablam trying to do their Indie Planet print on demand and digital copy services. And Drive-Through Comics, iBooks started carrying comic books. And so even though it took me a long time to work on the project, it allowed me, one of the really good things about it was it allowed the industry time to develop in a way that made it easier for me to ultimately step in when I was finished with the product. I work on a Macintosh that's pretty up to date, and I have a brand new version of Adobe Photoshop.
Yes.
And yes, and
that kind of guy right here.
Yeah, all these guys were pretty good on their websites, Kablam and Graphically, about telling you what formats you needed to be using. So I was able to. I really didn't have any color corrections I needed to make by the time I got my proofs back from these guys, and the only issue I did have was with print margins a couple times because Graphically actually changed, or not Graphically, Kablam changed their print margins on me at one point. So I had to go in and if you were to see a print copy of the book, in some of the Graphically copy, you can see where I actually, the edges of the images are a little softer than the central part of the pages because I actually went in and painted the bleed because I originally thought that the page was going to end a much earlier. And I didn't want the white borders on my pages. It was important to the look of the book to have things just kind of fade off the edge of the page.
Exactly.
So that was probably the only difficulty, which was annoying. I did have to go through every single page and sit there and clone stamp and hand paint the edges in there. But otherwise, it was pretty painless, and still, with Graphically, almost instant gratification to see your work on the internet like that and in vibrant color. So I'm excited for my future projects, and I will tell anybody out there who's thinking about making a book, go ahead and just do it. Don't worry about who's going to publish it or any of that stuff. Just create, do your thing exactly the way you want to do it, and put it out there. Sink or swim, you did it exactly the way you wanted to. You did it as a labor of love. So
definitely, absolutely. I'm kind of curious now. Are you going to continue this series?
I would like to. I have a lot of other ideas for comic books, completely different ideas.
Okay.
Max Brawler is something that is close to me, and it's been, I used to draw pictures of these characters and these things in high school and afterwards to make people laugh. And my friends and I all got a kick out of that. So there is an extended story. The script actually goes to a 13-issue arc, which is tough, because that's a lot of time and investment for me. I don't know if it's even financially viable for me to sit down and take the time to do all that. But I'm probably will here and there, even if I do it as like a web comic thing where I have to do a few pages at a time instead of full issues. I guess at this point I'm kind of exploring the alternate ways to tell the story as opposed to trying to do one 30-page comic book on, with the internet now, it doesn't have to be the Marvel Comics way or the DC Comics way that made sense for print. So even the aspect ratio of the comic books doesn't have to be the 6:9 that we're used to. It could be a widescreen television 16:9 format. So I have a lot more story to tell. I don't really know how I'm going to move forward with it as of yet because I've had pretty mixed responses to the book, and it's very niche. And while I'm happy with the product, there almost needs to be a demand to really, make me put the pedal to the metal on this particular project. I almost think about it like a pilot episode of a TV series at this point.
That kind of builds into a question I wanted to ask. Like, with the internet nowadays and all these outlets that you're talking about, it's a lot easier for anyone to publish a book, so there's a lot more things out there. How do you make sure that yours stands out, do you go out of your way to try and promote it these different places on the internet, or is there you just trying to let the art speak for itself? How you go about doing that?
Well, it's tough, and I may just not be experienced enough to know how to do these things, but I think the best thing for an indie publisher is to do things like get reviewed on the different comic book websites. And I have sent emails with links to the work, and it could just be that they click the link and don't like the book enough to even get back to me, but I haven't had a whole lot of responses. You guys are actually the only interview or someone that I'm not friends with on Facebook, kind of a review of the book that I've had at this point.
Sure.
I feel like that's one of the reasons why I like the comic book to look so visually distinct, was that if someone stumbled on it, they might think, oh, this is interesting. It doesn't look like the other books. But there is an absolute flood of content out there. And I don't know. I mean, I think you have to kind of buy advertising space, but then you're paying for the hits to your website. Comic book conventions and networking are probably a great idea, but also cost money if you're going to buy a table.
Yeah.
So.
Part 2, we're back, we're live. We have had some experience. Serious. This is probably Skyler. I'm kind of glad that you're here, but at the same time, you killed my tripod at the beginning, so a mixed bag of emotions right now. I'm just playing. We're live, kind of. Well, not really live, but we're rocking out with Cassidy Lee Phillips all the way from New York. Just finished talking about his book a little bit. We're just going to kind of visit and get into the industry side of things and see what he has to say in terms of like an East Coast / West Coast perspective. So originally, you're not from New York, but you're from Oregon. You spent some time in California. You've gone to the big convention. Can you kind of tell us about that? Because we went to a more petite convention, I suppose. Like, what was your experience, your impressions of it all as a creator? Not, how would you have reacted if you were pushing your book at that convention? Like, what was it like?
San Diego is huge, and the venue is huge too. So there's actually pretty wide walkways. So even though you have tons of people there, I feel like if you're going to spend the money to get a table, you're still going to have people notice you, potentially. Which I can't say the same for the New York Comic-Con. The walkways are very narrow, and everyone's packed in there like it's a subway train almost. And, sardines in the can. And I think you would kind of get overlooked if you didn't have gigantic banners, professionally printed banners to get people's attention. But I could be wrong. San Diego, as a fan of pop culture and comic books, I heard it was different years ago before the movie studios got involved, but now you go and it is just sensory overload the whole time. Yeah. But it just as you get close to the place, it's booth babes outside of the venue in uniforms for movie studios or even for the major comic book companies now. It's crazy. Anything that you want comic book-wise, you could probably find it in San Diego. And you never know when you're going to bump into a celebrity on the floor or whatever, and you can drive them crazy, ask them for autographs and stuff. It was cool. And actually, for me, one of the coolest things is seeing things from the movie studios, not to take anything away from the comic books, because that's awesome, but seeing things like the armor from the Iron Man movie and getting to see 10 minutes of a movie that's not going to be released for a year. I feel like they do a good job, and they make you feel like you're getting your money and your travel's worth to be a part of something.
Right, yeah.
And we've seen that they use it even on special features for some of these new Blu-rays that are coming out. Yeah. They're showing that they kind of use the San Diego Comic-Con audience as a test audience now. They gauge the interest in a movie or the presentation of a movie on how that audience responds to it and all age. So it's very cool. I recommend that if you guys can get it together to get out there one of these days, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Yeah. But it's a lot to unpack. You're gonna have to keep your cameras rolling.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a while to unpack.
You're gonna need some of that work, right? God, man.
Yeah, we'll have to work on that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought this new camera I got, I was going to take it with me to all these cons. I'm going to 3 of them coming up this fall. So
there's still hope.
I'm hoping so. A lot of hope.
Yeah.
we'll see. I'll let you know how that goes. But awesome. So we in our earlier visit that unfortunately is not recorded, we talked about just, some good stuff on there. We talked about, your Twitter usage and stuff like that. So as a creator out there, you kind of gave a little, some words of wisdom earlier, but what would you say is just kind of some of the key points, like, to make it successful and fulfilling? Like, what have been some of your highlights in this process?
Oh, well, for me, it's mostly been about keeping my expectations low, because it's the first thing I've ever done. No one knows who I am, and I'm doing something kind of odd and niche. So, it's like what I said about Twitter. It's kind of the same thing with the comic book and everything else, where you put yourself out there and you have to just take pleasure in the fact that you finish something that you set out to finish, in finishing the comic book, and understand that if someone sees it and likes it, that's awesome, even if that's only one person. And the way that I described Twitter earlier is kind of the same thing, where it's like, if you're out at a bar with a bunch of people and you make some joke, if people laugh at your joke, that's great. But there's so much noise and so many other things going on, no one will even hear you sometimes. So you have to be willing to accept it. The same thing can happen with your artwork or your writing or your tweets.
Right.
Because there are so many things out there on the internet, especially, that are free and hitting people from all sides, that you have to do things because you love to do them. And it's until someone is paying you in advance and saying, here, finish this by this date, you have to do it just because you want to do it.
Exactly. And that's, I just, again, and I said this earlier, but it's so cool, dude. 3 to 4 years. Hats off to you. Here, got one on this time. I said it last episode and I didn't even have my hat on. I was like, oh, my bad. That's not protocol. But no, seriously, and one thing I did want to say earlier, and I'm kind of glad I didn't because of the camera stuff, but you did mention, like, this is, your first interview. You said you kind of got some mixed reviews on the book. Just for the record, I really thought, like, at first, I didn't know what I was getting into, and I told you that, but what I really appreciate is just the artwork is just so cool. The culture of the book is so different. And you're a great interviewer. First of all, you're very accessible, and that's awesome. Like, we totally appreciate that. I really hope that you do have a chance to talk more about your work with other sites and stuff, and totally continue to network. Keep pushing it. The other thing is that I hope you continue doing your work in general. Like, I mean, if it's one book at a time, I would love to have another interview with you and talk about your next project. So and by then we'll have working cameras.
Well, I'll tell you the same thing I tell everybody. I appreciate all of that. I like that someone actually likes what I'm doing. That's cool.
Yeah.
But let's see. Thought I lost you for a second.
Nope.
My earpiece, but
sure.
But I'm addicted to drawing, without a doubt. I mean, I have been drawing my whole life. And so I will finish something. No matter what, there will be another project. I'll talk to you guys, and I'll say, hey, look at this. What do you think? Nice. And, even if you didn't like the book, I would have appreciated hearing what you have to say about it.
Yeah.
I hope that other people aren't somehow intimidated.
No, hey, come on.
But
I love it. Sorry, go on.
I love talking about comic books and movies and artwork, and whether it's my work or anything else. So I'm I'm putting myself out there. Anybody who watches, if they want to send me an email after reading the book, ask me questions, or criticize the book somehow, I would just be excited to know that someone took the time to look at it. Thank you. And you guys are great. I wouldn't have agreed to the interview if I hadn't watched some of your other work, and I like that you guys really get into the questions, and it's very much like a real discussion and not just a canned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't like I said, some of the other shows out there, and I'm not knocking anyone specifically, but it tends to be kind of a stuffy environment. And what we like to do is put a more hands-on approach to it, and we just go up to people. And we got some stares at the con, didn't we? Like, some of these people are like, what? Like, hello? Shaking their hand. What's going on? We just want to make it more personable and accessible, and that's kind of the point of our show, and we're having fun with it, And, it's awesome. Couple of questions for you then, just to kind of make you more available. Where can we find you at? Online, on emails, whatever. I got my pen and pad here, so I jot as you talk.
Yeah, you guys, I'm sure you'll have fancy graphics and make it real nice. But I also, going with the raw, sketchy style of the comic book artwork, I did make this really fancy sign.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that makes our job easier.
It makes yeah.
Yeah, so fancy graphic here. So www.aCBL.com. That's Casbot, and there'll be Max Brawler stuff there. You can read it for free on the website right now. Links to all sorts of artwork I've done for friends, pictures of these paintings. You can see a little better.
Those are so cool, dude.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to do more sports art and other things, so I'm going to try to have the website updated pretty regularly, hopefully once a week.
Nice.
And I have a little blog on there where I kind of goof off, and there's my Twitter at Casbot, CAZZBOT.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. There's email links there. You can respond and comment on the blog. I'm pretty easy to find. And at this point, I have plenty of time to answer questions related to the book because I'm between comic books. So my head is I'm not in hibernation yet.
Right.
Well, I'm trying not to be completely detached from the world when I'm working on my next project.
Well, since you're between books, what is your current project? What are you working on right now?
Well, I'm working on some ideas for what I'm calling Max Brawler Mega number 1.5. Okay. And actually, if you go on Facebook and search Max Brawler Mega, you can be a subscriber to the Facebook Max Brawler Mega page, where I do have a few pieces of artwork that have not been placed anywhere else yet. Nice. And with 1.5, what I'm doing is it's going to be 2 separate mini stories, and I'm going to do them in even more dramatically different art styles than the original number 1. It'll still look like my work. I can't help but look like myself.
Right.
Any other artists, there's going to be certain things that are consistent, but I like to experiment, and I try to adjust the artwork to the story itself. Yeah. So because these little short stories will have slightly different vibes, I want the artwork to be all about that. And beyond that, I don't have anything else yet. I mean, Max Brawler number 2 is scripted, and I have things going further than that. But it's just a matter of piecing together the time around my grown-up life to draw the comic books that I wanted to draw as a kid. So
yeah. That's awesome. Right on, dude. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and by time, good Lord, you're patient with us, my friend. Yeah, we appreciate that. We really do. We'll definitely keep in touch, I hope. And, when you have something, even if it's a new piece of artwork and you want to just kind of showcase your artwork, give us a buzz. If you're ever free on a Wednesday night and you want to do kind of like a call-in, we can have, the Skype up and talk with all 3 of us all at once. And we would definitely appreciate that. I love what you're doing. You're a kick-ass individual, and I really hope that you do stick with it, and you deserve, just a shine, because that book really shines to me. I really do like that. So, like last time, I'm not supposed to be doing the beer system. because it puts everybody in a hot seat. Oh, you know, like what if I didn't like a book, you know? And then it's just like I'm giving you a 2 beer, and then you're sitting there on Skype like, what?
I'm the one guy that if you didn't like the book, I would just want to know why, and I might talk about it, but I wouldn't try to argue you to like the book. If you don't like it, you don't like it, man. If you don't like a certain song, you just don't like it.
Right. But here's the scoop. We've been talking about this for probably over an hour, you know, so the fact that we're talking about that, I liked it. I liked it a lot. It took me by pleasant surprise, to be honest with you, because when I first opened it, I was like, what in the world is going on here? And then I just got into it more. The detail is just gorgeously urban, and I love it, you know. I am going to go ahead and give you a full 6-pack, even though I like my beer, so I'll share with you. And if I ever make it out to the NY area, I expect that, you know, we'll crack a few.
No, yes, I can definitely show you guys around if you make it to one of the conventions or something.
Nice.
Just let me know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking at hopefully going to one out in Tennessee, I believe. Either in October or next year. I'm debating. It's money. You know, like at the same time, I got bills to pay, unfortunately, and there's only so much overtime I can work before I lose my brain. So
that's reality.
Yeah. so, you know, but
well, thank you guys, and and you guys keep doing it the way you're doing it. Even if you get fancier cameras and technology, I think you should still just sit there in the t-shirts with the hats and talk exactly the same way. That's what makes it work. I like it.
Well, we appreciate your support. Thank you again for stopping by. Guys, this is a Comic Book Look After Hours and Cassidy Lee Phillips, and we are going to get his information out there. Get familiar with him, get interactive, that's what we're about. Check his book out, I'll put the link on there. You know, it's for free right now. It's not always going to be that way, so get on it. I totally recommend it. I cannot stress that enough.
Send him $5 if you like it. Just give this guy some money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So anyways, you guys know the drill. Skyler, John, Cassidy, we do what we do best, and that's we're going to keep it comics for sure.